Welcome to Pirate Living Podcast. We're your hosts, Karan and Kristen. On this podcast, we are highlighting ordinary people living extraordinary lives. These are pirates who take small, bold actions daily to create social change. Pirate life is all about rebelling and breaking the rules for good. Creating lasting social change starts by first breaking our inner rules. After all, the hardest rules to break are your own. The pirates we highlight have dedicated themselves to creating good trouble. Today, we are talking with Kelvin Smith. Kelvin is the host of the podcast Unquestionable with Kelvin Smith, where he asks people what they believe and why. As a former conspiracy theory enthusiast, Kelvin has gone down many rabbit holes, and he is now an atheist and skeptic, and he's encouraging other people to question their belief system as well. Kelvin is pushing the edges of the map, and we are excited to see where our conversation leads today. So welcome, Kelvin.
Hey, thanks for having me on, everybody. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, we're excited to see where this goes, to learn from you, and as part of pirate living is being willing to question your beliefs and push to the edges of the map, which is what you are doing. So we'd love for you to tell us the tale of your pirate journey. What led you to where you are today?
Yeah, cool. So that's really draw me to want to be on your guys' show, because I noticed that we have a really similar type of vibes going on with our shows. So I thought that be cool to be on. But yeah, I guess long story as short as possible is I used to believe basically anything that I used to read on the internet. So I guess we'll start from the very beginning a little bit. Is I grew up kind of a little bit religious, kind of not really, going to church till I was maybe 6 or 7 years old. And then eventually we just stopped going because my parents split up, and that just, wasn't on the possibilities for my mom to continue doing as a single mom. So we stopped going to church, but the religious thing was always kind of set on the back burner. And my sisters in particular were always really into like aliens and conspiracy theories and all that Mothman and all that type of stuff. They were really into it. And so they kind of started me in that path of learning that type of stuff and being interested in the supernatural and the paranormal. So I grew up more so gravitating towards the conspiracy theories and the like, oh, the what ifs and the government's betraying us and we never went to the moon. And then it started getting really, really bad, where I started thinking maybe the world is flat or hollow, or it's definitely not circular, or I think that there's some sort of dinosaur that might be living in the Amazon that these Amazonian tribes are writing about. Or maybe I think Hillary Clinton is a reptile and Justin Bieber is also a reptilian, and they're both simultaneously running the Illuminati, and they caused Hurricane Katrina as a false flag to abduct people. Like, it started getting really crazy. And so I kind of took a step back, and kind of not really. And I started looking into more biblical conspiracy theories, I guess you could say, because like I said, my family is religious. And I started looking at things like the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are like ancient biblical manuscripts that may or may not be forgeries, that we're still unsure about. But started looking at those and other conspiracy theories, like maybe Jesus Christ was real, but the things that he was seeing and describing were just mushroom trips. He was just on, some sort of psychedelics. Anyways, I started looking into those conspiracy theories. And so I sat down and said, you know what, I'm just going to read the Bible from cover to cover, because conspiracy theories are pointing towards this thing. My family's religious. I should see just what's going on with it. So I read the King James Version Bible. I have one sitting there, and I read that from cover to cover. I did skip over a handful of small books. Like, I skipped over the Psalms and like Lamentations, a couple other small books. And then basically within a page or two, I was really skeptical of the stuff that it was saying and claiming. And I kind of started note taking a little bit and looking back on some of the things that it was saying. And essentially by the end of it, I knew for a fact that whether the Bible was true and that God existed, the bottom line, whether it existed or not, that's not a God that I would want to follow, whether it exists or not. And after watching certain programs like the Atheist Community of Austin puts out a lot of nice atheist programs that are very educational. Reading a lot more into what I believe and why I eventually just led myself to atheism. And my wife is arguably the biggest skeptic I know, and so she kind of she was kind of coaxing me out of that as well. And basically by revelation in the Bible, I consider myself an atheist. And I started, okay, I said, if I can apply this much skepticism to my religious beliefs, I need to apply that same amount of skepticism to all these other things that I believe. So I started looking more into the things that I thought I believed, like reptilians running the government and Justin Bieber being a reptile, and all these different conspiracy theories, looking deeper into them rather than typing into Google what I think and then looking for stuff that fits what I want to be true. I'm actually looking for objective truth rather than people's anecdotal opinions and experiences. So that eventually kind of led me out of a lot of the conspiracies that I believe in. And towards the end of that realm, I made my podcast where I started talking to people about beliefs. And I still was really caught up in like the theories of Atlantis possibly existing. And I still think it's not technically off the table, to be honest, but I had a lot more history involved in my podcast. And now I more so talk about religion, people's beliefs. So I've dropped a significant number of the conspiracy theories I once believed since I first read the Bible back in 2016, and have since read it a second time and read a number of other religious books too on top of that. But so I guess you could say it's because of the Bible that I am a skeptic. But that's pretty much my story. That's pretty much who I am. And I've done volunteer work for the Atheist Community of Austin too. They're who kind of helped bring me out of those beliefs. I actually did a live call-in show with the Truth Wanted, which is a show put out by the Atheist Community of Austin. And I still continue to do small things with them, and have a couple other things lined up with them in the near future. So
I'm wondering what got you to decide then to read the Bible? Was there something that kind of precipitated that moment of you like, okay, I'm just going to read this? And then what was it in the Bible that you read that then was like, oh, all these conspiracy theories that I was hearing or learning are not true?
yeah.
So, yeah, go deeper into that.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, it's interesting you say that, because I don't know if it was necessarily something that I read in the about the Bible, like in the Bible, that made me want to read it from cover to cover. So it was when I started learning about the Dead Sea Scrolls. I don't know if you're familiar with the Dead Sea Scrolls. Nowadays, I'm a little rusty on it, but it's essentially they're ancient manuscripts that go back to. They're basically the oldest Bible manuscripts that we have that were discovered. I want to say it was like the early 2010s or something that these were discovered. And whether or not they're forgeries is still like up in the air. We don't know how authentic these things actually are. And so they're ancient Bible manuscripts. So I thought that there was some sort of like, oh, this is, evidence of. I first looked at it and was like, oh, this is evidence that, the Bible is true, that Jesus is God. That's like this evidence. And so I was like, then I was like, okay, well, I'm a little bit religious, so like maybe I want to look into that a little bit more. And then I just fell into the Bible because I fell across the Atheist Community of Austin's show, The Atheist Experience. And I started watching those programs. They were referencing a lot of Bible verses, and they were talking about specific Bible stories and Bible conspiracies. And the Dead Sea Scrolls. I came across them talking about that a couple times. So I just sat down and was like, you know what? Everyone's talking about the Bible. My family says that the Bible is true. So, I'm just going to read it. What's the worst that can happen? Go into it with an open mind and maybe come out of it a better Christian than I started. And I was atheist, probably not even halfway through it. But yeah, it kind of was the whole Dead Sea Scrolls thing that kind of got me into wanting to read the Bible.
And yeah, so what stood out what stood out in the Bible that had you going, no, I don't want to believe or go along with this. I'm now atheist. What were some of those points that were sticking out to you as well?
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's an interesting question. So I don't necessarily, when I first read the Bible, I wasn't 100% sure, and I'm still not 100% sure, whether I believed that God existed or not. But if that God did exist, I for sure wouldn't want to follow the things that he was doing and condoning in the Bible. From the slavery and the misogyny and genocide. I mean, it really wasn't sitting well with me. And I was like, geez, a God that not only condones this, but in some cases causes these things to happen, like directly causes these things to happen in the Bible, whether that God exists or not, I'm not cool with him. Like, frankly, I'd rather go to hell, to be completely honest. Like, I don't count the amount of people that Satan killed in the Bible compared to God, and you can count the number of people that Satan killed on one hand. God is, he killed like the whole planet except for 8 people apparently. But so and then it just, after looking more into like the arguments for the existence of a God, let alone that particular God and other people's gods, like I read the Quran and I read the Bhagavad Gita and I read a little bit of the Book of Mormon. I stopped reading it because it's incredibly boring, to be honest. I thought the Bible was boring. Like, holy cow, guys, the Book of Mormon is very boring.
It's even more.
I'm slowly chipping away at it though. And I have like 3 or 4 different Bible translations laying around here. And I just bottom line, wasn't convinced that this God could exist by the things that it was saying, because it's making these supernatural claims of people walking on water and curing blindness by spitting in their hand and rubbing it on people's eyes. And this isn't things that we are able to demonstrate and do today. So why would we think that they were able to do it back then just because they wrote it down and said this book is true, so you believe it's true? Like, that's not typically why we believe in things. So I believe things off of the evidence to support it. If there was evidence to support spitting in your hand and rubbing it on blind guys' eyes and curing their blindness, then I would totally believe that. But I don't see a reason to believe that just because it was written in the Bible and Jesus apparently did this. But that's kind of where I come from.
Okay, I apologize first of all. Like, we're here live on location, and by live on location, I mean I'm at work at the gym and people are slamming stuff behind me. So.
No, you're good. You're good.
Breaking news.
Breaking news live, live but recorded. Oh, damn it. No, I forgot what I was going to ask you. In terms of like, first of all, I really appreciate the fact that you're reading these religious scriptures. So as someone that went to Catholic school and has also read like most of the Bible, because we literally had to in school,
Right.
I find I would get into these religious arguments with people who, I don't know where are you coming from when you haven't actually read the text or the script and you don't know about this religion. So even though I don't consider myself currently Catholic anymore, I felt like I could argue about religion from a place of like at least some knowledge rather than ignorance, which I think is important.
Right.
So I think a lot of these, like, I feel, and I'm wondering how you feel, that a lot of these conspiracies just come from a place of ignorance. And what are your thoughts on that? Like, where do these conspiracies actually even come from, religious or non-religious?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would agree with you that it comes from a position of ignorance, and that's exactly, I can speak from personal experience, not fully understanding how things work, and so you're plugging things in that are fun, and are, you kind of feel like you have the one up on somebody because you're like, I know something you don't, or like I know something even like the top dogs don't know, or like it's like almost this I'm smarter than you mentality is kind of like where the conspiracy theories fall. And I've noticed that a lot with a lot of the conspiracy theorists that I've talked to, like on my podcast. I've had a couple like flat earthers on, and I mean, not to, I love all my guests, but to be honest, the flat earthers are the most aggressive and the most like I'm better than you mentality, like just being completely honest. And I've been there. I was there when I was like, I know what's going on in area 51 and you don't, like, let me teach you, it was like that. So yeah, it comes from a position of ignorance. And so I didn't want to argue with people about their religion if I didn't understand what their religion was and what exactly they were believing. So I was talking to Christians and they were like, oh, well, Matthew 5:18 says this. And I'm like, well, what does that even mean? And so I have to go back in the Bible and read that verse to even know what they're talking about. Or if I'm talking to a Muslim and they're like, oh, but Surah 5:386 says this. And then I'm like, what? And then I have to go get a Quran and look at that. So might as well just read the Quran and know what they are talking about and know what the context is. So I just kept running into those problems. I started with the Bible, read the Bible. So now I can talk to Christians, and then Muslims popped up and then they're talking about Muhammad and Allah. So then I need to read the Quran and understand them. And now Hindus are popping up. So I read the Bhagavad Gita so that I can understand their arguments. And now I'm getting questions about Buddhism. So now I got to find some Buddhist, scriptures and read that so I understand it, because I don't even know what I'm talking about as far as that goes. So it's like I come from a place of wanting to understand things and wanting to know where you're coming from, because I get it. I've been there. I've fallen for things that are false because they made me feel good. And I get that it makes you feel good, but truth is more important than feeling good, in my opinion. I much rather would know the truth rather than, have a good night's sleep, because at least it makes me feel good personally. I don't know about you, but that's me.
So when you're in the conspiracy theories and you made the step from like believing them to questioning them, shoot, I had a question there. It was actually a good question too. I was wondering how you get from that place, but also then too, like what. There was another part to that, but yeah, let's start with, how do you get to that place of like starting to question and then moving forward, and how do you know? How did you decide like this is what's true, and this is just completely hoax, conspiracy theory?
Yeah, that's a good question. So so I've kind of started doing this like on my podcast with certain episodes, actually, is breaking down particular claims, like specific claims with no guests or anything, just focusing on a particular claim. And for the most part, it's been claims in the Bible. So that's kind of what I started doing to deconstruct I guess you could say my faith with the conspiracy theories, is I would focus in on a claim. So whether it's, I don't know, dinosaurs being in the Amazon or the Loch Ness Monster, or Bigfoot, I would hone in on that belief and I would research it. Literally the internet is free for everyone to use. Well, I guess you could say, unless you pay for your internet, but Google is free. You can go on there, and I mean, yeah, not everything you read on Google is reliable, not by any means. And for sure, not the first result that pops up is not always the first thing you should believe, which is what I was doing. Is I was reading the first literally 3 or 4 articles on Google of things I wanted to be true, and I was just believing them because I thought it was cool, and I thought I knew something someone else didn't. And instead, I have learned how to check my sources, who is writing these articles, what exactly they are saying, what their credentials are, understanding what they are saying. So dependent on what they're saying, if I don't understand a word or a terminology that they said in this maybe peer-reviewed article, then I go and I back research that particular term that I don't understand, and try to understand it to the best of my ability. And maybe I don't fully understand it by the end of it, but I have a better idea than when I started. And that's bottom line. And I don't claim to be a scientist or an expert in anything whatsoever. So I don't have any reason to have to prove myself to anybody, because if I was claiming to be an astrophysicist, then I should probably know some astrophysics, but I don't claim to be an astrophysicist. So I'm not going to argue about like the creation of the universe or something with anybody. But yeah, like with the particular claims, like I did a whole podcast on the Noah's flood bit, where it talks about the Great Deluge. I did a whole podcast where I broke down that claim, whether a global flood can actually happen, what the ark was made out of, according to what the Bible specifics say on it and the blueprints in the Bible for it, what the animals were on it, what kind of care needed to be done for these animals, whether it's reasonable that 8 people could care for 2 of each animal on the entire planet on a 500-foot long wooden boat. Can that be done? In short, no. I just summarized the whole podcast for you. In short, no, it can't happen. But please go listen to it anyways, because I worked hard on it. But yeah, so I do things like that, and I'll break down particular claims. I'm just kind of working my way through the Bible right now, breaking down very big claims in there, and maybe I'll move on to like the Quran and some other religious texts in the future, and just kind of talk about those and whether those are reasonable to believe based off of just what that text says.
Oh, I thought Karan was getting ready to say something, so I was pausing for her to. She's not. Yeah, there's so much research that you put into this too. Question: what is one of the conspiracy theories that you believe that now you're like, I can't believe I ever believed that, or what's one of the ones that other than flat earth that you have, maybe now you would say that one was really out there?
My most ridiculous one that I usually turn to is, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, is that I believe that Hurricane Katrina was a false flag by the U.S. government. So basically, I believed that the U.S. government created Hurricane Katrina, like created it and put it where they did, so that them, as reptilian overlords from the Draco constellation, they it's so ridiculous. I truly believe this though with all my heart. They created this false flag so that they could essentially round up the stray people in the storm, claim that they died, when really they were just experimenting on them or using them as like little slaves on their spaceship or something like that, or something to that matter. And yeah, that's probably the most ridiculous one that I believed. Is I really don't know why I even believe that. I listened to a couple podcasts where this random guy was claiming to be a police officer at the time in I think it was in New Orleans where Hurricane Katrina happened, if I'm not mistaken. And he claimed to be a police officer there, and he claimed to see all of this stuff happen. Like he saw reptilians abducting people and stuff. And I just was like, yeah, man, he's telling the truth. Why did I believe that? But I believed it. I was writing blogs about it. I was preaching it like it was truth to other people. And I really don't know. I don't know why I believe that, but yeah, essentially it didn't take me very long to bring me out of that ridiculous belief.
And I also question, why is he saying this?
I know, right? I know there's so many questions, and really, I just was not in a very great mindset at the time. And I just literally just was like, yep, he's telling the truth. He claims to be an officer. He didn't even give his real name or anything. He just called himself like RC or something like that. And like, I believe him. I don't know why.
So as you were making that shift from like all the things that you were believing with conspiracy theories too, I imagine conversations around you started to change as well. So what did that look like for you?
Yeah, that was interesting. So like I said, my wife is very big skeptic. She was born and raised atheist. She's never been religious whatsoever. Never even heard of like a God concept until she started in school. So she she never believed in any of the stuff that I believe in, but I've been with her since 2016. So about the time that I read the Bible was the time that we were getting together so she kind of was right there at the beginning of like this evolution kind of out of these types of beliefs, but she was there right when it started getting really bad too. And so the shift in conversations was interesting, going from just saying, hey, look at this thing that I read that's happening on over in China or whatever, this crazy lizard person or whatever. Look at this video I found of Justin Bieber's eyes changing. It started turning into, instead of her asking the questions, it was me asking the questions and her answering the questions with what she's thinking, and me going, oh yeah, that sounds a little bit more reasonable. And so it's those types of conversations were happening. Other people around me, they knew that I was like the crazy alien guy and stuff like that, so they would like tag me and stuff online and show me the videos, and they wanted to make a podcast of talking about conspiracy theories. That was like my first rough draft of a podcast, was to talk about conspiracy theories. And it just instead shifted to wanting to question those things more. And so then I wanted to talk to more people about these things, just because I was curious, like, how is your mind working? What do you think, type of thing. So I was going to make a podcast, and originally I wanted to actually do it with somebody. I wanted to do like a partner thing where we break down stuff every episode or have guests on or something. And it just kind of evolved into me just asking people what they believe and why, essentially convince me, is kind of, if you believe these things that strongly, why you should be able to, tell me why you believe those things. So yeah, just the conversations just kind of evolved to, instead of acting like I knew the answers, being able to say, I don't know. And that's just kind of how it changed.
I'm curious, like, what do you think made you like right for believing those things in the first place?
It honestly, it had to be like my upbringing, because my earliest memories that I have, like with my sisters and stuff, and my family has got a lot of Native American heritage in it, so there's a lot of superstitions that are throughout the family, and we all believed in ghosts and stuff, and we all would be scared to like go to my Aunt Wanda's house because there was a spirit that was walking around that would throw stuff at you. And so I just kind of grew up more so in that realm, with kind of the Christian on the back burner. More so was like the supernatural and paranormal beliefs, but like, hey, God is watching. But also ghosts are real, and Bigfoot is real, and Mothman is real, and Dogman is real. All these different things that, and Wendigos, and all these different things that people believe in. And my sister's buying whole textbooks on like alien species and stuff, and we'd like read about aliens and stuff together, and watching Monster Hunter and Ancient Aliens on TV and stuff. So really, it had to be my upbringing, my family being so much into the like superstition and supernatural type of aspect, rather than the organized religion aspect. So I think that's kind of what brought me into it.
And so now that you've got your podcast, you're asking the questions. Yeah, just coming in with an open mind. What is the social rebellion that you are starting, or that you want to start?
Yeah. So, as I kind of mentioned before, I do some atheist activism. What I have noticed, especially within the past couple of years, is a lot of, I guess you could say, Christian nationalism taking over in especially the U.S. government. And there's a lot of things going on in like Israel, with women being severely punished or killed for removing their headdresses, which are, related to the Islamic religion. So my social rebellion is being able to talk against those types of beliefs and being able to say, you can believe that the things that you want to believe, that's totally fine. You can believe that people walk on water every 2,000 years, and that Noah's flood happened, or that Allah is God, or Krishna is God. You can believe that. You're totally welcome to believe that. But you can't enforce that belief on me, nor can you pass government laws and policies based off of those beliefs on me when I have different beliefs than you. It's different if those laws and policies are better for the objective community rather than certain aspects of the population, whether religious populations. But it's about just not enforcing your beliefs on other people. That is bottom line. What I promote and want to do is healthy skepticism, not believing things off of blind faith and having good reason to believe in things, and not enforcing those beliefs on other people. But you are welcome to believe whatever you would like. Just don't tell me that I need to believe that same thing and hurt me for not believing in those things. So my rebellion is fighting against those types of beliefs and people telling me what to do.
Like the whole idea of freedom of religion, I mean, it should be freedom of and from
Exactly.
religion.
Exactly.
And just as an outsider, as a non-American watching what's going on in the States, like the separation of church and state doesn't really seem to be happening anymore. And it's especially like they create these laws about freedom of religion, but if that religion happens to be something else, I doubt that would fly if it was anything other than the Christian religion being practiced and like preached in schools. So it's not a freedom of religion; it's enforcement of Christian ideology onto the population. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, you continue going on, and it's just like the continuation of like colonialism, which America was founded on. Right? I can go on my little rant, but so yeah, it's not. It's. I love that you say that, because it's that whole like believe what you want to believe, but you can't impose those beliefs on other people. So yes,
Exactly.
the Bible says you shall not thou shalt not kill. Cool. I think we can all agree on that one, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
okay, universally, yes, not just because it's in the Bible are we going to agree on
Just
that.
I don't have the right to end your life any sooner than it's supposed to. That's just not my I don't have the right to do that.
Exactly. But when these things from the Bible turn into misogynistic beliefs, homophobic beliefs that infringe on other people's freedoms and their own rights of autonomy, that's when like it becomes a non thing. I don't know. That's not a word.
Yeah.
But that's a bad.
Right.
Right. And you see that happening so often right now with like you said, the Christian fundamentalism that's like invading the US government.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So we talk a lot about good trouble. What does good trouble mean to you? And how is the work that you're doing creating good trouble?
Good trouble. That's interesting. So I would say it's similar to what I'm doing, because I'm kind of, let's be honest, I'm stirring the pot a little bit. It's Christians have run the country essentially for hundreds of years. And the fact that there's this insurgence of non-belief, of people, because of access to information through the internet, a lot of people are starting to learn how to question the types of things that they believe and not be indoctrinated so easily into these beliefs. So the fact that I'm kind of, I guess you could say, poking the bear by questioning people, I started learning street epistemology, which street epistemology is it's an ancient tactic that was used by Socrates mostly in ancient Greece, and it's being able to converse with people about what they believe and why they believe it without necessarily enforcing your beliefs on them. It's purely asking questions and nothing more than that, and not implying any answers, and using thought experiments to kind of pry at people's brains a little bit. And that type of tactic is what I tend to try to use, especially on my podcast, because it's not a debate format podcast. And I use that format to kind of pick at people's brains so that they don't get so angry, so defensive and closed off, and, learning how to read people's body languages and how to converse with them without being disrespectful. And I think that that's probably, yeah, with me, I guess you could say I'm poking the bear by saying that I'm making people question what they believe. And sometimes people don't like to do that. And I think that using street epistemology, which a lot of people use every day and don't even know that they use it every day, using that tactic through conversation, talking about beliefs, everyone's going to get a lot more out of it. And it's not going to, I guess you could say, ruffle as many feathers.
Yeah. So with some of those conspiracies too, you want to just chat like a few of them, like Bigfoot. Tell me a little bit about Bigfoot. Karan and I live in the Pacific Northwest.
All right. Yeah. Bigfoot. So Bigfoot, back in, I think it was I want to say it was 1966 is when the Patterson-Gimlin film came out. And, Patterson and Gimlin, I can't remember their first names, but they were just like hunters, and they were out on a mountain trail, and they happened to have their video cameras, and they claimed to have seen this creature walking, and so they pulled out their camera and started recording, and that's where we get the famous, the Bigfoot walking sideways photograph, and that's really the first major documentation of a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot. There, of course, is like old like cave drawings all around the world of giant hairy ape men. That's nothing uncommon, and probably because we used to be giant hairy ape men, so that would explain why we draw them sometimes. And but so I started looking into that belief a little bit, right? So Bigfoot, actually, I can't remember which guy is, whether it was Patterson or if it was Gimlin. One of them has since passed away, but I guess before I get into that, like all Bigfoot beliefs and everything seem to be like based for the most part on that particular film and that experience of that Bigfoot. I can't, Patty is the name of the Bigfoot in the video. And depending on the Bigfoot hunter that you listen to or talk to, they believe that Bigfoot's anything from just a like an ancient human that's just a giant hairy ape man that's nothing special about him, it's good at hiding, or like a guy that I talked to on my podcast, his name is Ron Moorhead, and he believes that Bigfoot can time travel and turn invisible at will and travel through dimensions and eats people and all types of stuff, and can speak telepathically and rides on a spaceship. Like it can get really crazy with the Bigfoot beliefs. And at a time I was like, oh, that makes sense because no one can see Bigfoot. He just disappears before you look at him. That makes total sense. And then I'm like, wait, come on now. Like that doesn't make any sense at all. So yeah, I don't really see any reason to believe in Bigfoot based off of blurry photographs and videos, castings of footprints that are very easily faked, like so incredibly easy. It takes seconds to do it. And there's just no way of telling what that footprint came to or whether it's even actually a footprint whatsoever. And frankly, some of them are too defined to be convincing whatsoever. They just look like, like the footprint and they're just not convincing. I just, there's no reason to think that there's a giant undiscovered ape man that's walking through like the forest, like not even just the forest, just like, the Yeti could be considered a Bigfoot too. But notice how if they're everywhere like this and we don't have a single one, where's all the poop go? What are they eating? They obviously are breeding. How are these children? There's not a single Bigfoot baby that's ran out into the middle of the road. Never. Where
are their
once.
Skeletons? Where are they dying?
They're multidimensional. The babies disappear.
Exactly. And like that's their argument. It's like, oh, when they die, they disintegrate. It's like, oh my fucking like
are you octopuses.
Like, are you serious? Like that's called ad hoc rationalization. Okay. So you can't do that. And so I just don't see a reason to believe in a Bigfoot. And that goes for like a Nessie, a Loch Ness Monster. I'm working on trying to get a Loch Ness Monster hunter on my podcast right now. And
don't forget the Ogopogo. We got Ogopogo up here.
Ogopogo?
Yeah, I know, right?
It's basically the Loch Ness Monster, but in Canada.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, in the interior in a big lake. And you see videos of these waves in the lake that people say it's not waves. That's the actual Ogopogo swimming through.
Plot twist. It's actually waves.
It's actually we're big like Ogopogo Sasquatch people up here in BC. So while I'm not a big Ogopogo believer, I'll reserve the right to just hope for a Sasquatch living his best life in the forest. Like I wish I could. I'm like I'm just hoping he's doing the thing and maybe one day I can join him.
Yeah, man, just letting it all hang out. Just doing Bigfoot things, like what does he do all day? If he's out there, like what does he go? Like if he's got to hide all the time, seems like quite a job. I mean, like what does he do?
I did see a recent video of like a female holding a baby. And someone was filming from afar.
I think I know what you're talking about.
And she's like kind of hiding in the trees and they're like filming and they're like, this is proof. This is a female holding a baby and like blending in with the trees. I was like, real.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think that video, someone came out and said it was just like a naked guy who was skinny dipping or something.
With a baby.
I'm pretty sure. I could correct me if I'm wrong. I'm gonna look into it.
I don't know the answer to that one.
Now I want to know, but
as someone who just wants to believe, like I'm like, yeah, that's it. Proof.
Yep.
All the rest of the conspiracy theories, no. But Bigfoot or a Sasquatch, like that's my guy and my gal, and she had a baby. So
hey, there you go.
I mean, it just proves to you.
That's total proof. Don't need anything more.
Yeah. What about some of the like recent things that have been going on? Because there's been a lot of recent, I don't know if, again, this was in Vancouver. Like we just had some recent things. There's just like a dead crow hanging in the air above some, I don't know if you saw that video. It just seems to be
I need some videos sent to me to put in the podcast links.
Okay, I'll send you some video, but it was in Vancouver and you can see the power lines. Right. And above that, a couple of feet is what's obviously a dead crow. And it's just hovering there like it's caught on something, except you don't see anything.
I'll have to look into it.
Yeah, that was maybe
it's interesting. 2
weeks ago. and
but then it just makes me think like people are pretty good at editing videos nowadays. I feel
but it was like multiple videos of people being like stopped in the street, like going, what's the fuck is happening with this crow, dead crow just hovering in the sky. So that was another fun local one. We do like
Yeah.
our weird shit here in Vancouver. It's
So I don't know if I would even call it a conspiracy theory, but I think that there was possibly an ancient civilization roughly 12 to 15,000 years ago that existed and was wiped out by a cataclysm, and we are in the process of rediscovering their quote unquote technology, and some of the ancient structures that we have around the world are remnants of that society. I guess you could say I believe in that. And that kind of comes from so I think that ancient Egypt in particular goes back much longer than the common current consensus is. The current consensus is that ancient Egypt started around 7,000, 7,500 years ago, around 4,500 BC is about the time that people started to colonize and populate Egypt and, build the pyramids and such. And I think that it goes back even further than that. And I think it goes upwards of 10,000 BC. And that's so basically there's the ancient site in Turkey. It's called Göbekli Tepe, and it was discovered in the 90s by a goat herder. He actually found like a column sticking up out of the ground on his grazing lands. He called some archaeologists, and they dug up what they didn't know was the oldest ancient civilization to date, like even still. And it was dated to roughly 12,500 BC is about the time that it was built. And the significance of it is that it's not even a small site. The site's upwards of 5 miles in diameter. It's ginormous. There's no human skeletons, no animal skeletons found here, but all of the T-shaped pillars that are standing are thousands of tons. And they have embossed engravings on them, meaning that they had to carve this stone around the engraving. So they didn't carve into the rock, they carved the rock so that it's actually sticking out. So it's extremely difficult that they even did this. By no means is it anything perfect. It's very primitive still. Obviously, they were using some sort of primitive tools. So I'm not saying that they were like using laser technology or anything like that. Just very impressive that they knew to do this back then. And the site was backfilled with dirt and mortar. So the previous tenants of the area filled the entire 5-mile radius of this small city with dirt and mortar. And no one knows why. They filled it, like buried it, essentially, purposely buried it. And why they did this, we aren't completely sure, but we believe this. Experts that are studying it believe that the ancient civilization lived before the Younger Dryas epoch, and they knew that this cataclysm was coming, so they backfilled it to protect the civilization, and then they went upon dispersing and protecting themselves, hoping that they would survive and come back to Göbekli Tepe, and they didn't come back until it was discovered recently in the 90s. And the Younger Dryas was a period from 12,500 years ago to 11,800 years ago. So it was like a 1,200 year period of disasters. It was earthquakes and ice caps melting and giant floods and meteors hitting the earth, just pounding us with meteors, and just volcanoes erupting. It was basically cataclysm for like 1,200 years. And believe that the people from Göbekli Tepe knew that this cataclysm was coming. And so they buried Göbekli Tepe, and some of those tenants survived. Their bloodline, I guess you could say, survived and passed that information down to what became ancient Egypt and taught them how to build these pyramids. And they were looked at as being gods because they had this knowledge already of how to build these awesome structures, and how to do this. And that's people like Ra in ancient Egypt, is depicted as being like humanoid, but he had an eagle head. Obviously, he didn't actually have an eagle head. That's just a imposing, like supernatural powers on him because he had a knowledge that nobody else had. And I think that's kind of the case for a lot of the ancient sites around the world. You look at the Mayans, and they have a similar story where someone showed up and taught them knowledge on how to build their civilization. And the Incans, they have someone called Viracocha that showed up and taught them how to build Machu Picchu and Cusco. And the Peruvians, they have a person that showed up with an elongated head that said, hey, I'm going to teach you how to cultivate and be a good civilization. It's all around the world that there's people showing up, humanoid figures, and they have a knowledge on how to build stuff that they didn't have before. And I believe that the survivors of Göbekli Tepe were that civilization. That's, I guess you could say, a conspiracy theory that I believe.
And if you want a brief, a brief history on that, Graham Hancock has, I was trying to look it up. I think it's Ancient Apocalypse, 8-episode series on Netflix that will go into that. So
yeah, that's a great show. I watched that
Ancient
whole thing.
Apocalypse.
Yeah, it's
called,
good.
you should definitely listen or watch it. It's really great. I have all of Graham Hancock's books. I've talked to a lot of close friends of Graham Hancock, but never actually Graham Hancock himself. I'm still working on getting him on the show. But I've talked to a lot of really close friends with him. I'm inching myself up there to him. But there's a guy, his name is Dr. Greg Little, and he was on I'm surprised they didn't feature him on Ancient Apocalypse because they were talking like all around him, but never actually. But anyways, Dr. Greg Little, he has spent his whole life researching this place called Bimini Road. That's off of the coast of Andros Island in the Bahamas. And there are literal structures like pillars and engravings and carvings and a literal stone road that is under the ocean. It's like 25 feet under the ocean just off of the coast. And archaeologists are like, oh, that's totally natural. But Greg Little showed me and sent me, pictures and books and everything. He's like, look at this, man. Like, this is human made. Like, this is made by humans. And the shoreline dates back to 12,500 years ago. When that happened is when the shoreline was below Bimini Road, and that would have been, land. He's like, this is evidence that there was a civilization here, that maybe this was Atlantis here. And so I've had him on my podcast a couple times, and Graham Hancock talked about Bimini Road for a whole episode on Ancient Apocalypse. And, I'm just very surprised that Greg Little didn't make an appearance. I was waiting for him to show his face, but he never popped up. But yeah, it should definitely look into Greg Little too, because he's got a lot of really interesting stuff. But
well, as someone that was born in Bermuda, the Bermuda Triangle obviously features heavily in our entire society.
Yep.
I wonder if you have any brief thoughts on the Bermuda Triangle.
I don't know. Honestly, it's one of those things that I've just been like, oh, that's weird. I don't think there's anything like supernatural necessarily going on. I think it's just an area where people tend to crash, go lost, disappear. I guess you could say it's just to me seems like a common area, and correlation doesn't equal causation. So just because a lot of people are disappearing in this little particular area doesn't mean that anything is necessarily going on in that area. It could just be a common thing that people just so happen to be disappearing in the same spot. And the fact that nothing supernatural has been documented over there, I don't see a reason to think that there's anything going on besides people going missing in a particular area of the ocean.
Yeah, it's interesting just growing up with those people going missing stories, though.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So when you have them like prevalent in your culture of like, oh, it's always like so and so's friend's son or whatever, right? And
it was never you, right? Like you never went missing and came back and was like, oh, this like it never you. It's always this person's cousin's father's brother.
And like they were my dad's best friend's son went missing while he was fishing and never came back. And it's like, I find like the tendency was just to blame the triangle, Bermuda Triangle. and not that maybe he, like the reefs around Bermuda, he crashed into the reefs and or got lost. Because I've been on the water when it's super still and you can barely tell the difference between the water and the sky. It's the same
Really?
freaking color and you can barely see the skyline. It's very disorienting. So it's like it I don't know, it's just that you don't have another explanation about why these things happen. Like it's so easy to say, well, it must be the Bermuda
Right,
Triangle.
exactly. And that's kind of where I come from, is that, people don't understand, I don't get why this is happening, so it must be God, or oh, it must be aliens, or it must be because the earth is flat, or it must be because the reptilians, it's like, just instead of plugging in what you want to be true, just let the evidence speak for itself. Is there evidence to warrant any of those things? No. Then why are you just say you don't know? It's okay to say that you just don't know, and that's kind of where I come from, is that just if you don't know, don't claim to know. And then when I ask you to cough up the evidence, don't have it, and then get mad when I'm like, okay, then I don't believe you. Why would I believe you?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like, well, why don't you believe me? I'm a trustworthy person. I just don't believe you. I mean,
so I have one question for all of us. Okay. What of these conspiracy theories, we'll say Atlantis and Bigfoot aside, do you want to be true? So yeah, what is one that you want to be true, or like secretly kind of believe might be true?
I want it to be true that the government is hiding extraterrestrial technology behind closed doors. I want that to be true, because that would be dope. But I just don't think we're smart enough to keep that type of thing a secret. I just think humans are stupid and we can't keep our mouths shut.
It's true.
Somebody would say something by now. Like, you can't change my mind. Somebody would say something. And yes, Bob Lazar and there's other like whistleblowers, but like, I don't think they're super reliable. I don't know. I just feel like it's something that major would be out by now. Now, I will say, I do think something that I kind of believe is that I do think that we have technology that is unannounced and that is a hell of a lot better than what we think we have behind closed doors. I 100% believe that the government has some sort of technology that would just blow your freaking mind if you saw it. And they're keeping that hidden from us. But whether it's something from another world, I don't know if that's something I believe, but I would love it for it to be true.
Is that in the bunkers below the Denver airport?
Ooh,
yeah,
airport. We could go on this for a while.
Oh, that's a cool one.
You just opened a can of worms.
this podcast all of a sudden is 2 hours long.
Funny.
This is what I love TikTok for. I'm learning so much truth.
Oh no. Oh yeah. Geez, you're gonna have to follow me on TikTok, because those types of people saying those types of things are people I reply to.
Excellent. That is exactly what I'm looking for. So Kristen, what do you want to be true? What do you hope to be true?
Well, quick before that, with the Denver airport, they were doing construction a couple years back, like 3 years back. And they had up signs all over the place about their conspiracy theories in regards to the airport. It was the best. I have a few pictures of it, but like there would be signs of like the flaming eye horse statue that's outside.
That's
and it made some comment of like, what's behind these walls? Is it like and they'd refer to the different conspiracies, like, are we doing this or are we building something?
That's funny. I love that. I want to get like one of those posters and like frame it.
Yeah, they had tour guides too, so like, because it got confusing about where to go, but they had shirts on that they even like said something about like, ask me about conspiracy theories. And so I had lots of time before my flight, so a friend and I were just like, all right, so what are you willing to talk about right now?
Okay, show you to your gate.
Right.
He was telling us about this gargoyle that they had that would talk to people too, and just like all these fun things they play off over there. So yeah.
That's cool.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah, as far as what I want to be true, that's a tricky one, but I would say not like the idea of there being evil aliens coming, but I like the idea of there being aliens that are coming
Mhm.
to visit, like check us out secretly, like but we don't actually know that they're coming. So I wouldn't say necessarily like the alien abductions, but like these people from these beings from another place far away
Yeah.
actually being able to travel light years to get here and check us out and see what's going on.
Mm.
Yeah, that'd be
Mm.
cool.
That would be good. I like, yeah, the idea of, especially the good ones. They're like, oh, we're
Mhm.
here to help. You guys are fucking yourselves up pretty good.
Oh yeah,
So,
no, if like evil aliens, like if aliens visit, I sure as hell don't want them to be evil, because
Right.
like that's the last thing we need is not, we've got global warming and a crappy government. Now we got aliens. Like, great.
mhm. I think for me, I do like the aliens. I do like have this. I mean, I don't, it's hard to believe that we're completely alone in the
Mhm.
entire like
Mhm.
universe. Um, but I don't know. I kind of want to believe in ghosts. I think,
Mm.
I've had my own like supernatural kind of experience um, that freaked me the hell out. And
Go
I don't know,
on.
makes okay. Okay, so brief interlude here of a like 10-minute ghost story. This was back in Bermuda. I firmly believe Bermuda has a very different energy feel. Like if you believe in that or not, it has a very different feel than we have here in Vancouver. Um, and this was when I was a police officer, and I was house sitting for my coworker. And this was going to be my first night or first day actually in the house, because I actually worked a night shift. And then I had court in the morning. So I finished work at like 7 a.m. I had to go to court, all tired and groggy. By the time I finished court and got back to their home, it was about noon. So this was daytime. And I go up and get into their bed. And it's like there's a main house. And then this is an old, like almost like we would call it a carriage house here. But basically it's like a 1 bedroom, and the bedroom is at I'm making hand motions like people on the podcast can hear, but like the pointy roof part, that very top floor. So the windows are slanted, there's the bed, and then windows kind of at the foot of the bed,
Right.
overlooking the water. Beautiful little spot, but very old home. Um, and so I crawl into bed, super very tired. And when I lived in Bermuda, whether this was related to doing shift work with the police or whatever, I often had that feeling of sleep paralysis. So I don't know if anyone's had that before. It's pretty terrible, whatever it is, the reason for the sleep paralysis. So I had just kind of nodded off and experienced what I would call was one of my worst bouts of sleep paralysis. And
Mm.
sleep paralysis, you feel like you can't move, and you feel like you're kind of struggling, because there is a point in your sleep cycle, I think it's in your REM sleep, where you are actually have a sort of paralysis so you don't hurt yourself while you're dreaming. But anyway, so I had this really terrible bout of sleep paralysis, and when I finally kind of came out of it, I sat up in the bed, and so now I'm facing the window, and I could see a reflection in that window of a man standing next to the bed. And of course, when I look, not there. He was dressed in like a black suit, very old timey kind of suit. I'm not too ashamed to admit, I grabbed my shit and I never went back to that house. I did not spend another night in that house, or day even in that house. Um, so, like I said, I have a science background, rational mind. I understand some of the things about sleep, and I'd like to say that that was just my mind playing tricks on me. But I've never had sleep paralysis here in Canada, and I can't explain. I can still vividly see that picture in my mind of this man figure standing next to the bed. So I would like to believe that ghosts are real. If you know me, I love a good ghost story, whether that's a movie or a book. Um, So yeah, that's the one that I'd like to believe in. Not
So
that they're all bad.
you would rather believe that there actually was a ghost man standing next to your bed rather than think maybe my mind was just playing tricks on me. You want to believe that there was.
Yeah.
You're brave. I'll take the latter.
Well, and just like maybe not necessarily even in that occasion, but just the fact that spirits can kind of remain and linger and whatever their purpose is, that there's something else.
Like, to me, like being a ghost sounds more like torture to me. It's like, just let me die.
It's
like
true.
why do I gotta be here again for longer? Like, I don't see why do I have to be here? It's
I'm
like,
not saying it's good for the ghost.
Yeah, it's
good for a story.
It's good for a story,
I guess.
though.
And it's like, when do you stop being a ghost? Who was the first ghost?
That's a good question.
Like,
that's a great question.
Like, was there a first ghost? Like, at what point in our evolutionary, family tree did the first ghost happen? Like, why don't we see ghost Gigantopithecus out here? Like ghost Homo habilis. Like, I don't see any ghost cavemen. I don't see any ghost T-Rexes. People see their cats as ghosts all the time. But I've never seen a ghost Stegosaurus.
I would love a ghost Stegosaurus.
Now, wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't you like that?
It's like, that'd be really cool, but like,
yeah, this land is haunted, but I've got a Stegosaurus ghost. Amazing.
It's my next story, my next children's book.
Everyone's gonna want to do a sleepover at your house.
I don't know. One of those things I'm like, yeah, I think I enjoy the ghost stories so much. I'd love for it to be true.
I agree. I mean, that'd be interesting, but same time terrifying.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to hang out with them anymore. No. Like, that was one and done. Like I said, that was enough for me not to go back to that house. So
right.
But this has been awesome. I've really enjoyed having the chat with you. Where can our listeners go and find out what you're up to? What's your TikTok and your Instagram, and remind us the name of your podcast?
Yeah, cool. Pretty much if you go anywhere, type in Unquestionable with Calvin Smith, I'll pop up really anywhere. If you go to Google or YouTube, I'm on YouTube. I don't post as often on there. All my interviews are on there, but some of my like episodes where I just kind of am talking about a certain claim by myself, those ones are only available on like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, really anywhere else you get your podcasts. You can find me on Instagram at Unquestionable Podcast. On TikTok, you can find me at Unquestionable Calvin. I'm about to hit 21,000 followers over there, so go give me a follow.
21,001.
Yes, right. And I post all kinds of stuff over there. I've started doing a lot of animal content because I'm a big animal and reptile nerd, and that's what I do for a living. So I post animal content. I do my music stuff. I have an original song out called "Empty Room" by me, Calvin Smith. It's out on Spotify. It's been out for just over 2 years now. Working on putting out an EP hopefully soon once I get more money. And you can find me pretty much anywhere if you type in Unquestionable or Unquestionable with Calvin Smith. I'm everywhere. I'm on all social media platforms and all streaming platforms. So if you look for me, you'll find me.
Cool. We will.
Mm-hmm. And how would you recommend our listeners start their own pirate life?
Take initiative. Do it. Just do it. Just go. That's one thing is I was holding back for so long on just doing a podcast and talk. I was, to comfort myself, was writing blogs that only I was reading. No one else was reading these articles and stuff that I was writing to myself just to cope. And if you have something that you're passionate about, something that you want to say, just say it. Just go out there and do it. Do your own thing. It doesn't matter what other people think. I personally want to hear what everyone has to say. If you have something that you believe and that you think you want me to do, say it, and I'll take it into consideration. I'll look at it, but I can't know to take those things into consideration until you just say it. Just do it. Go for it and throw it out there for everyone to see and let them decide whether they want to listen to what you got to say or not. Just do it is my message.
Just do it. Mm-hmm. Calvin Smith.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for this conversation today. It was so much fun.
Yeah, thank you. I had a ton of fun. This is awesome.